Hi, it's Jamie, Progressive #1, #2 employee. Leave a message at the... Hey, Jamie, it's me, Jamie. This is your daily pep talk. I know it's been rough going ever since people found out about your a cappella group, Mad Harmony, but you will bounce back. I mean, you're the guy always helping people find coverage options with the Name Your Price tool. It should be you giving me the pep talk. Now get out there, hit that high note, and take Mad Harmony all the way to nationals this year! Sorry, it's pitchy.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Blog Talk Radio.
Any other human being who's cruciform control, no longer in search of meaning, I'll utilize my soul to be a messenger, to be a radical, to be loved, be a messenger. Be a radical, be loved. Falling from the matrix, why is what can set you free. And if you look behind the curtain and then into the mirror, then I think you'll see. Be a messenger, be a radical. Up with us all. The scars that you get each day make you stronger somehow in some way. Look for your own truth in your heart when it's told. You know, it may seem like a coda, but I learned it from my Baba. It's not what you believe, it's what you do. It's what you do. It's what you do. What you doing now? In a fraction of an inch, and loving always one is supposed to be a cinch. Be a messenger, be a radical, be loved. Be a messenger, be a radical.
It is Friday night, May 4th, and it is Off the Chain. I'm your host, Yvonne Mason, and that song just made me want to get up and dance, and I'll talk more about that song in a little bit, but first I have some news that is just going to knock all your socks off. All of you that have followed this show for the last going on 2 years now know that I worked real hard to get us on iHeartRadio. Well, we are on iHeartRadio and have been for a while, both under Off the Chain and Southern Chats with Yvonne Mason. Well, we are now, ladies and gentlemen, going to be on Spotify. Yeah, that's it, Spotify. They are uploading the podcast now. They said they should have because they got so overwhelmed with all the requests that it's going to take about 6 weeks, if hopefully it'll be sooner. So we are now on iHeartRadio and Spotify, as well as iTunes and YouTube and Spreaker and SoundCloud and Podcast.com and Podcast Garden, FM.com, TuneIn Radio, Mixcloud. We're all over. We are heard in over 150 countries now, and we are heard completely in the North and South America. We are heard completely in Europe. We are heard completely in the Asian countries. We are heard almost completely in the whole continent of Africa. There's just a few of the countries that haven't picked us up yet, but we are heard all over the world, and it's all your fault. And I'm so tickled to death because this is not my show. This is your show. It's you, the guest. It's you, the listener. And those of you that continue to listen, continue to follow the show, continue to spread the show, I am so, so grateful. Because as of this morning, we were at 114,554 listeners just on the show. That does not include all the podcasts. I did not get all of the podcast numbers up, but we are pretty close to, I want to say, 150,000 listeners with all the podcasts plus the show itself. And I am so humbled and so grateful and so appreciative to each and every one of y'all, because y'all are the ones that make this show successful. I'm just the facilitator. I could sit here all day and talk and nobody would care. But because my guests hang with me, they keep coming back, they love to come back, you, the listener, keeps listening, it is very humbling, and I appreciate it. Now, there's two ways to get on the show. One, you can be a guest on the show. All you have to do is contact me or have your agent or your PR person contact me at offthechainradio@yahoo.com and send me your songs, your bio, your headshot. I'll get you on the show. Or if you're kind of shy and you want to get exposure but you're not real sure about being on the show, send me an ad for $10 for however many shows I do in a month. I'll run that ad for a month. I'm not in it to make money. I'm in it to help you succeed. You can either send it to me in MP3 format, you can send it to me in written form, and we'll take it and run with it. And to start the show, two of my original sponsors, I want to start with them, and then we'll run the other three ads later on in the show. But Inside Your Life with CeCe Chamberlain, she was my very first corporate sponsor. I am so grateful for her. She has a podcast, which is a motivational, passionate conversation, and she interviews people who are living their true purpose, whether it be a professional boxer, an author, or a history enthusiast. CeCe strives to give one hope for a brighter day with her inspirational words. So download, subscribe, and listen as CeCe guides you to pursue your dreams and for you to live your best life possible. This fantastic show is available on podcast.com, iTunes, Google Play, and elsewhere podcasts are available. Diane Mote is an author, and God love her. She has been with me since forever and a day. She thinks I don't charge enough, and she and I have this conversation all the time. But I do charge enough. I charge more than enough because my goal is to make Diane and CeCe and everyone that comes on this show more successful. And Diane has a series of books, and the second in the series goes like this. Wherever a hapless animal whimpers in the dark, wherever the system fails to protect an animal, she'll be there, and she isn't giving up anytime soon, so you've been warned. When Sam Holden receives a tip about a brutal dog-fighting ring, she embarks on some of her most dangerous acts of vigilantism yet. The monster known as the puppeteer circles Sam's world as she unknowingly circles his. As they chase each other, will Sam put those that she loves most in harm's way in order to bust up that ring? With time running out and animals in need, the dangerous life that Sam's created begins to eclipse any other life she could ever lead. Buy Diane Moat's latest book in the Sam Holden series, Dogfight. It's on Kindle. And if you haven't read how all of it started, begin the journey with Doggone by Diane Moat. It is also on Kindle. So those two ladies, check them out, and I will run 3 more ads throughout the show, but I'm going to tell you what, I've got the most fantastic songwriter, musician. I listened to his music today, and it inspired me. And then playing I Am Love by him, if you don't have faith, ladies and gentlemen, you need to get some, because this man and his work will just open up your heart and pour it in, whether you want it or not. His name is Ed Roman, and he is an award-winning singer, songwriter, performer, and multi-instrumentalist, say that fast 3 times, from Shelburne, Ontario, Canada. Blurring the lines between pop, rock, folk, and country music genres, Ed's uniquely crafted songs have received regular rotation on more than 100 terrestrial radio stations across North America and more than 600 stations worldwide. Ed is a 2014 Artist Music Guild Award nominee, a 2014 International Music and Entertainment Association Award winner, and a 2018 nominee, a 2-time 2015 IMEA Award nominee, a 2015 and 2016 Josie Show Awards winner, an Academia Awards winner, and a 2-time Indie Music Channel Award winner. This man is phenomenal. He recently won a 2017 Radio Music Award for Best America Artist, and his latest release is the critically acclaimed album Red Omen. And if I'm not mistaken, I Am Love is on this album. Without further ado, Ed, welcome to the show. Thank you so, so much for making my day.
You are a sweetheart, Yvonne. I just love listening to your voice. It's just, you were talking earlier, saying to your fans, the people that have helped support the station and everything that's going on and off the chain, and you use that phrase, it's your fault. I just love that sense of humor and wit. You got to turn that key just a little bit sometimes. So with that said, true. It's a pleasure to be here.
And it is their fault. It's all y'all's fault, because this show started July the 21st in 2016, and I thought, well, if I get 1,000 listeners, I will be happy. And I put this show out there, and I said, okay, people, this is what I'm doing. You want to be a part of it. And I have shows booked up through the end of the year.
See, that's incredible. And I'm on the same page with that, because everything that's happening with my career and people that listen to the music, as far as I'm concerned, we're doing it together. All those acclamations and the awards and the nominations you were talking about, that's because of my management, Michael Stover, and everything that we've been doing together. I wouldn't be where I am today with that kind of help, and being on a show like this has that same effect. I appreciate your words when you're saying you're trying to help people, and this is the thing, this medium and the way that you can reach out, like you're talking to all the different countries that you're in now. Isn't it amazing that, like, years ago, with the even with telephone or having to do stuff with television and major radio, it was so difficult. You can speak to people all over the world, and the show can go all over the world, and I think that's just an amazing place to be in right now.
I mean, we're heard in places, Ed, like Iran, China, Egypt, Jordan, Japan, the Soviet Union, Slovakia, of all places.
Hey, that's me. I'm Slovak.
See? So your Slovakian cousins, aunts, and uncles, in-laws, outlaws, friends, and frenemies will hear you on this show. I love it.
Dobro noc, jak ty.
See? And speaking of your history, let's just take a step back in time, because as you well know, and I have to educate some of my first-time guests, because a lot of them don't understand what they're selling is not the brand. That's just a byproduct. They are the brand. and people want to know about them. And then we'll get to your songs because your songs are marvelous. But I want to know your background, your history, because before we went live, you told me that you grew up among the Aborigines Indians up in Canada, and you lived on a farm, and you learned how to appreciate what we are so blessed with, and that is Mother Earth and the things she gives us without asking anything in return except that we take care of it. How did you get from there to where you are today?
Wonderful question. I think it's like a 57 Chevy blowing up in your kitchen almost. With the connection to the Scugog indigenous people here in Canada, when my father, they first immigrated here from Slovakia, as you had mentioned, they had originally settled in Port Perry. And in Port Perry, just north of Toronto here in Canada, in Ontario, there are many denominations of Aboriginal people, but one of which is the Scugog Island Indians. And our farm, the little farm that they had there, was right up against the reservation. So my dad spent a lot of time in that community, but as we got older as kids, and my dad, Mom, and I, we went on vacations and trips, we would often go to places that were, either had a powwow or something like that, because my dad was so interested in that part of Canada, and coming from a different country, and then being more so embraced by those people when he first came here, he just felt really attuned to that and akin to that kind of culture. And then from that whole part and that stem of that existence of my family, both my sides of my family were always farming. We had an enormous cattle ranch. We had dairy cattle mostly. We had 1,500 head. My mom and dad, they brought Blonde d'Aquitaine cattle in originally from France and to Canada in the 1970s. They were a type of beef cattle. They're right across the country right now. They had the first embryo transplant center ever, where they were doing embryo transplant to recipient animals. But at the same time, the 1,500 acres that we had was a cash crop farm, but, huge gardens that were filled with vegetables every year. And some of my earliest memories were hoeing and pulling weeds. And, my mom, she's a hell of a lady, God bless her. She's the one who first instilled that passion in me and my brothers and sisters. And same thing with my dad. I can remember my dad coddling vegetables like they were children because he was so proud of what we had done. And I think the pride factor, that big, we did this because of how we live our lives, is a big part of what you're talking about, that question. Why and how did you get to that point? And to tell you the truth, Yvonne, you're a writer yourself. The creative process for me exists in so many places in my life, and I see growing food and gardening, anything for that matter, a close kinship to writing music and the creative process, because it's like planting a seed. You get the spark of an idea and you nurture it. You look at what it needs and what it requires, and most of the time what I love about it is it's asking you questions so that you can kind of, pull yourself through a new experience in the process. And in the end, it starts to sustain you. It starts to feed you that thing that you work so hard towards. So it kind of, it's weird to say, but it's all kind of connected in that way. And why I feel, so close to that aspect in my life and what I do. And music has that sort of spiritual connection, just like gardening for me.
And that brings me to, now, ladies and gentlemen, I don't have this song on the playlist tonight, but I listened to it today. And I was telling Ed before we went live that the song that I listened to called I Found God touched me in such a way, because those of you that know me know that I have a very deep, abiding, and sustaining faith. If I didn't, I probably would have committed suicide a long time ago. But what Ed was saying in this song, and this goes back to the gardening and the farming and the nurturing and the cuddling of the vegetables that your father did, because those were like his children.
Yeah.
The song I Found God in It, Ed, says, look at the sky, look at the ground. That's where God is. And you are so right. We are surrounded by the magnificence of him because he has provided the earth and the seeds for us to live.
Well, you know what? I don't want to get emotional because it means a lot that you're saying that. As I said off air, we were talking. It's an epitaph song. It's something that I would want scrolled across a gravestone because, having those realizations about your living environment is that spiritual connection to that higher form of existence. It has so much going on that, and this is why I'm a big proponent of growing your own food, or, people will say to me, they tie it into certain things that are sociological, like, are you a prepper? And I'm like, no, my grandparents did this, and my parents did it, and they taught it to me, and I don't see anything about prepping or it having that connotation other than, I'm preparing myself for dinner. I'm putting food away, and I'm preparing for winter. And I think that skill is such an important thing to have in the consumer species of existence that we live in, from everything is 247 when you need it, to and Sunday shopping. I remember when I was a kid, everything was closed on Sunday because people were worshiping. They did what they did. They spent time with their families. Having that downtime, even inside of gardening or taking a walk in the bush, allows for that filtration of all that stuff, because there are so many things that separate us from it. And that's the thing. When I go to the grocery store even, and I think to myself, well, I don't need to buy that, and I don't need to buy that, and I say it to myself out loud, or I talk to people about food in the store, like, we live in Canada, and we could be growing this, and that, and the other thing, but why are we importing it from thousands of miles away? And meanwhile,
exactly.
the family farm is struggling, and it's kind of going down the tubes, and it can be harder actually for people to start a farm as a result of that. But the know-how and the ability to do it and share that knowledge with your children, or you're learning it from your grandparents or your parents, it even brings that connectiveness of your family together, because it's not even a chore anymore. It becomes a part of your lifestyle. And it enhances it to that point that you go, oh my God, this is the stuff.
Well, as you're talking, and there, you say you're being asked if you're a prepper. Well, do people not watch nature? The squirrels, they gather for the winter, and they store it in their nest, and they store it in little hidey holes, so that when winter comes and there are no acorns or nuts for them to eat, they will not starve.
Well, and you know what? And I think you're right, and it's true. Nature is leading by example. But the other mechanism of it makes it difficult is, Yvonne, people's lives are so inundated with being busy, trying to keep up. Some people are working 2 and 3 jobs. Kids are at school all day. Then you've got the internet. That's another sort of infiltrative factor inside of the family unit. All of that stuff kind of makes it difficult for people to focus, to create that environment. They say, well, we can't because, well, in some cases they can't because it's their living circumstances. They might live in an apartment building, but that doesn't mean they can't support local farming and local growing. But, making that time, it's a conscious decision. It's about the perception of doing it. And once you start to do it and sort of cut the proverbial digital umbilical cord, you can kind of start to see, wow, this is good. I like having these feelings, and maybe growing so much food that you can share it with other people, or maybe you grow so much food that you take it to market. And then all of a sudden, it removes that other aspect of your life that, well, it's drudgery because of this. It's drudgery because I always hate commercials that are always showing the inept person in the kitchen cutting or doing something. You can't do this. You can't do this because, and da-da-da-da. I say, bah. to those kinds of commercials. Bah humbug, exactly. Because I think it's more interesting trying sometimes than even just having the repercussions of knowing that it will or won't work. It's trying that makes the big difference happen, and doing it, making it happen. Like Yoda said, there's no try, there's only do. But people are even afraid to try sometimes, right? So I don't know.
When my children were small, there were times my children would have gone hungry had we not put a garden in my backyard. Because like you, my grandmother taught me to garden when I was a little bitty girl and stayed with her a long time.
And it was passed down from a generation to a generation.
Passed down. I knew how to go. I knew how to go out there and fix the ground, and how to lay out the rows, and what order to plant, so that it would come up in the right way. I knew when it was ready to harvest.
Here's the thing about that, Yvonne, that practice and the skills and the understanding of that are timeless. They've been going on for generations.
Yep.
And passing that to the next generation is essential. But what does the, let's say, 21st century 40 to 50-something that, when they're 80, do they pass apps or something like, coupons down to the next generation? What is that sort of like earth-related skill that is given in that regard? It's not just about language. It's not about the allegory of the family. That's important, too. There's a lot of certain things that are important in terms of that. But that skill, like you said, I can hear it in your voice, your enthusiasm. When the kids were young, we did this. I learned it from my grandmother, because there's even more other than tending the garden and picking and growing the food, and because of the conversations that happen, the problem solving that goes on. It accentuates the thinking process in a whole other way. So it's healthy from a multitude of you don't have to join a gym,
Really, you don't, because you're so tired at the end of the day. And speaking of, let me play the 3 ads that I have to play, and then I want to play Red Omen, and then we're going to come back. Ladies and gentlemen, we have songwriter, singer, performer, and multi-instrumentalist, say that fast 3 times, Ed Roman with us, and I absolutely love this man. If I would give my right arm to meet this man in person and hug his neck, because I feel like we are kindred souls. I can't tell you the passion that both of us feel in this. So if y'all will just bear with us, and Ed, my daughter is on the phone listening in, and she can also tell you that they were taught how to survive. So if Armageddon comes tomorrow, my 3 children will know how to live because they were taught how to survive off the land. So we'll be right back.
Do you have cougars on your porch swing? Are horses your new best friend? Do your nicest shoes get buried knee-deep in snow as your toes turn blue? Are you bothered by wolves at your woodpile? No, not that kind of wolf. Join wildlife artist and author Nancy Quinn and her family as they discover an exciting new life in Go West, Young Woman, a true Montana adventure. Available online and in bookstores. Or visit QuinnWildlifeArt.com for a personalized signed copy. Critics agree, it's a hoot.
Hi, this is Winona and Jade inviting you to join us and our wonderful guests on the And I Thought Women's Cave podcast on Blog Talk Radio to learn more about our books, the And I Thought series, and the Misfit Guides. They're available on Amazon.com and BarnesandNobles.com. Or just to see what your ladies are up to, you can find all of that out on www.andwethought.com. So peace and love from Winona and Jade and our books. You're so silly. You silly. Remember, did you write that? That's funny. Remember to visit us at andwethought.com.
Former Boston PD captain Stanford Carter and his wife, forensic scientist Jill Seacrest, have decided to move to the Big Apple to accept positions with the New York branch of the FBI. Rookie agent Shania Deeprose completes the trinity as they collide head-on with raging and rampant social, political, and economic unrest amid a string of murders that seem unrelated and may be serial, copycat, thrill, or hate-driven. As they struggle to understand the mind and thought process of the orchestrators, killers, and victims, the team begins to wonder who's who. The line between black and white, superior and subordinate, right and wrong, and good and evil disappears as they are forced to reevaluate their own thoughts, feelings, and philosophies. Ultimately, every character must come to their own conclusions to these questions. Is justice ever more important than the law? Is playing God justifiable if it's for the greater good of all? Come along for the ride to see if Agent Carter will decide to stick to being a hunter or become judge, jury, and executioner instead. Find the answers to these questions when you read the new book, The Killing Collective. The Killing Collective is a character-driven story with big characters with depth. They're soul-searching in addition to the biggest case of the agents' careers. The Killing Collective, available on Amazon in both Kindle and paperback editions. Order your copy today.
Tell you that I grew up with Red Omen, and boy was he a neat kid. He had all sorts of really cool things to play with, like a plutonium spaceship lunchbox and a bathtub full of Legos. And I didn't believe you when somebody said that he fled with Jimi Hendrix to a UFO-type base camp up on Machu Picchu. Up on Machu Picchu. I said, excuse me, it's not my fault. He's playing the crime, so he can't get caught. I said, excuse me, I must confess. Well, give me 2 words. Well, in my defense, laughing mad. I'm laughing mad. Laughing mad. There's a red-hot stove down in Pittsburgh, going out hard like a cherry pie. Call me a fibber, call me a liar, say it to my face, like a cross between Benjamin Franklin and Ian Pace. And I didn't believe the man from MI6 living out in the sticks, who souped up his side by side like Evel Knievel, just like Evel Knievel. I said, excuse me, it's not my fault. He's playing the crime, so he can't get caught. I said, excuse me, I must confess. Well, give me 2 words. Well, in my defense, laughing mad. I'm laughing mad. I'm laughing mad. Laughing mad. Me today, you see my nerves are shattered, tired, tattered, beginning to fray. Just like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, realizing only now you're caught in someone else's claws. And I didn't believe in myself if no one else, to be making voodoo music in some small town way up in Canada. Way up in Canada. I said, excuse me, it's not my fault. He's playing the crime, so he can't get caught. I said, excuse me, I must confess. Well, give me 2 words. Well, in my defense, laughing mad. Well, I'm laughing mad. Well, I'm laughing mad. Laughing mad. Hey, did I ever tell you that I grew up with Red Omen? Boy, was he a neat kid.
And we are back with Off the Chain. I'm your host, Yvonne Mason, with my guest, songwriter, singer, performer, and multi-instrumentalist. I'm going to learn how to pronounce that word before this show's over. Ed Roman, who is all the way from Shelburne, Ontario, Canada. Ed, I want to know something. Are all of your songs that upbeat?
Not all of them. It's like life, you know. It has ups and downs. It's like a roller coaster. Sometimes the ride is wild, and other times you're wiping a tear. And that's I guess the part of the writing process for me is it's about, you know, life experience and things that I hear people either going through or that I'm going through, or sometimes it's just a simple spark, you know, of an idea that leads to a whole other process of thinking. But I kind of, you know, I let it lead me. You know, if it comes up upbeat, then I want it to be there because it wants to be there. But you know, like it's
sounds
like life.
The voices in my head.
Yeah, exactly. You know, there's always a difference to things, the dialectic of existence.
So tell me about Red Omen. It has got such a catchy hook to it. How did that song come about? It sounds like a grown man who's thinking about his past and his best friend and all these things his best friend had, and that's why he wanted to go play with him so much.
Well, it's about me. Ironically, I mean, I don't really write many songs directly about myself. Maybe experiences or feelings, but it's an anagram of my own name. I mean, if you jumble the words, it spells Red Omen with the play with the vowel. Red Omen is Ed Roman almost. And I grew up as a dyslexic. I was sort of labeled with this sort of disability, but it's really a gift.
Yes, it is. Welcome to my world.
And I really wanted to use that play on words because as I started to really struggle with language and reading and writing, my mom, she was just is a wonderful woman. And in the 70s, when they're like, well, your son's hyperactive and we're going to put him on Ritalin and my mom's like, no, you're not going to put my son on a drug you know nothing about. And she spent hours and hours of her time working with me, and sometimes that meant word safaris, or my mom would read to us, and I'd be always like, well, Mom, what does that word mean? And we'd do, she'd either tell me, or we'd go into depths as to where the word came from or how the word was formed. So I wanted this song to be filled with language and color and stories and allegory that's sort of based in partial myth and partial truth, because in a certain way we're kind of left with those things to deal with in our own lives. Is that true? Is that a true story? Did that really happen? So it's salt and peppered with a lot of things from my childhood. I loved Jimi Hendrix growing up. I think a lot of people loved Jimi Hendrix. He was definitely an influential player, writer, musician, composer, world-renowned. And at the same time, there's that line in there about going to a UFO base camp on Machu Picchu. My whole family had this sort of mass aerial phenomenon experience in the late 1960s, and it was part of our family story. I remember my grandparents telling the story, my mom and dad talking about the story, brothers and sisters. So it's written in there. The Red Hot Stove in Pittsburgh, that's Mike Stover. He's down in Pittsburgh, Mike Stover, the stove. He so often I hear, people will say, man, your manager, he's such a nice person. He's such an efficient guy. He's so good at what he does. And it's true. He's like a cherry pie. He's like a cherry pie.
The man is phenomenal.
Irony would have it that he's even goes back generationally. Somehow his family is connected to Benjamin Franklin. Again, the story has that aspect of it, of things that are happening now, and then the future. What is the prediction for the future? All of that is in there in some way to kind of in a fun, playful way, use language and words to really kind of get you smiling, get you dancing, get you chuckling. I'm sure we've all heard of Evel Knievel. We've all heard of Jimi Hendrix. We've all heard of, so it conjures feelings in your own mind, whether they're feelings of mine, but you might recollect on, you remember the time you jumped the Snake River Canyon? Oh, yeah, do you remember that? It was on television. And that. All of that is kind of where I love writing to be. It's not just saying one thing on the outside. It has levels that can take you somewhere and get your mind and imagination running and get you excited about your memories, because it's really about that song's about my memories and things that I enjoy. And there's many things that I enjoy, but those things made it into the song. And again, that is the wonderful connections to when we reach out. I reached out to the Dyslexia Society, and through the facilitating office with a girl named Beth Shearer here in Ontario, connected me to the head of the society, who's Sue Hall, and they want to get behind the project and the song itself and try to support it, because I'm also creating a video with a well-known illustrator and animator Nelson Diaz in New York City. If you've seen SpongeBob SquarePants, that's Nelson's work. Kung Fu Panda 2. He's done an alarming amount of work for Nickelodeon and Teletoon, but his company in New York, There Be Dragons Creative Media, is creating a full-length animation version of that song, and I'm really excited that the Dyslexia Society is getting behind it. We're doing a release in New York City in the summer. We're doing another one here in Toronto. So, that's the thing. The beauty behind the conundrum, which was, they told me I had a problem, has now turned into something really beautiful that can help out a lot of kids. I want a third of the proceeds of the monies from the video sales to actually go to the tutoring programs, because they use the Davis method, which Ron Davis is in the United States. He's out in California. He's a dyslexic himself, and developed a whole tutoring program almost identical to things that my mom did with us in the 70s when there weren't those kinds of programs. And the Davis method is in the Netherlands, it's in Germany, it's in France, it's in the UK. Many places around Europe have adapted that now into their education system as sort of like a recognition educational training program for kids that have more of this, and I'll use the word again, gift, which is more this photographic kind of conceptualization of language, as opposed to the literal meanings behind certain things are sometimes irrelevant. So if I say to you, a dyslexic, if you say the word elephant, invariably most people will see in their mind's eye, say, an elephant. But if you say the word the, or was, or saw to a dyslexic, it doesn't conjure a picture. And the Davis method sort of recognizes what this is in kids from a young age and starts to steer them in the right way so that they can develop more of a wavelength in the academic side of the education system. So it's not replacing it.
This is why I love this man, because he thinks like I do. I have a brother who is mentally and physically challenged, and the daughter that is listening in has children who have been labeled, and I hate that word, labeled ADD, ADHD, and dyslexic. My father was dyslexic, and my dyslexia is I see things that aren't there, or I think I've written something that's not the way it really was, or I transpose letters. Been that way all my life. But it's like you said, it's a gift because it makes us unique.
Well, that's just it, and it you know what? It's funny because I did a little documentary. I just posted it actually the other night on my YouTube channel, and it's called The Art of Dyslexia. And one of the people that I interviewed, along with my mom, who helped us with the problem, my sister, who dealt with the problem, and I'm not problem, the gift again. She had something really amazing to say. Amazing but alarming. One, there is almost a direct parallel to the amount of people that are leaving the education system through expulsion, can't keep up with the work, teen pregnancies, all these sort of things that are connected to that same issue that are directly entering the prison systems in terms of like, so what she's basically saying is that the framework, as rigid and generalized as it is, and maybe in some people's eye, out of necessity in order to create speed, the curriculum develops, they move through it. But it's failing a lot of people in terms of being able to recognize their potentials and abilities outside of the academic world that then can help them understand the academic world by embracing something different. Removing arts programs like music and other things in the schooling system is not healthy because it removes that tactical thing that, you know, kids can get their hands on. Even art programs, sculpting, textiles, they're all part of that same thing that is in that art conceptualization process. And it's another aspect of the brain. She says this is not the hemispherical aspects in terms of language learning, mathematics is one side, but there's a completely opposite side of the brain that needs to be massaged. And when both of them aren't working in concert, it's very difficult, especially inside of that kind of, with that kind of a person and their development in terms of how they are educated, how they grasp things. And if you have a 15 or 16-year-old that can't still spell their name properly by the time they hit high school, that means the education system is failing them. You know,
where
like
have you been all my life?
We're all here together. We're all here together, Yvonne. It's your fault.
I have been preaching this for years. My mother preached this. My brother was born in 1952, and he got encephalitis. And encephalitis is an infection of the lining of the brain. And the doctors told my mother to put him away, that he would never amount to anything. My brother was a pioneer in the public school system in Fulton County, Georgia, in the late 50s, early 60s, graduated from high school and has been working since he was 7 years old. But he wasn't supposed to be any. And my mom had no resources like your mom. There were no resources. But she said the brain's a muscle. If you don't exercise it, it atrophies.
Bingo. And that's another thing why I'm, again, with food and agriculture, it goes hand in hand. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, having that sort of healthy lifestyle and eating that way, it removes so many of the other things in food, and especially processed foods. The basis of them are like salts and sugars, but we can go into like a list of things that we can't even pronounce properly, and I don't want to put that in my body. I don't want to. I want to be, more self-sufficient.
That in medicines, Mucinex, just to name one, in Mucinex they put propylene glycol, and do you know what that is?
Yeah, it's gasoline antifreeze.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now,
TBHQ, which is also a derivative of butane. There's a huge list of FD and C colorings. They know that they're carcinogenic. Don't get me started about fluoride. You know.
but yet they want us. They tell us don't drink antifreeze. It's bad for you. But yet they put it in medicines that are supposed to keep us well.
Hey, Yvonne, you and I both probably consumed or bought Triscuits years ago. And why they had to change the recipe as a result of that, for the reasoning is that stable shelf life for a longer duration of time. Well, that may be so, but what is the consumer eating? You may not, it's not a good thing to be. As somebody, if I was to manufacture a product, I don't want to, and this is where I think the sort of morals in business or moral ethics inside of manufacturing, and there are great businesses out there doing great things, manufacturing great things for people, and they stand behind their stuff, and I love that about companies. But how can you, in other than the fact, okay, well, I just want to make a whole lot of money and I'm going to manufacture junk? I couldn't live with myself personally.
Well, we'll either all die of antifreeze poisoning or will be very well preserved from all the preservatives in the food. They won't have to embalm us when we die because we're already be filled with formaldehyde.
Well, they know from some exhumations that they've done, whether because they have to move a cemetery or there's something that's going on in the legal, that people aren't. There's far more preservatives that are in food that are stopping the level of or retarding the level of decomposition. So, I mean, you know, all hail the backyard garden as far as I'm concerned. All hail the carrot, you know, like let's start a vegetable cult.
But then, Ed, you have to also think what's been in that backyard garden. What environmental foobarbs have they put in the dirt so that it's not good, rich dirt that grows things healthy because you don't know what chemicals they've put in the yard.
Oh, when you get a subdivisional home, I mean, I've seen it happen. They'll remove 2 to 3, maybe even 4 feet of topsoil. They'll take that away and they'll bag it and they'll sell it to people. And then they bring in other stuff that's subpar, and then they put turf on top of it. You can't grow much in there. Even sometimes the stuff that you buy from a store in a bag, depending on who it is and if it's somebody that's got a farm and they're composting and mixed mulching and they're making it themselves, that's a whole other thing. But they're almost like bioorganically and microscopically dead. They really don't have a lot of juice in them. They actually pump them up sometimes with artificial fertilizers and things like that, so you get a boost at the first half of growing. But at the end of the day, you know, 4 months or 2 months down the road, you might be going, man, these plants are suffering. Like, what's going on here? I thought I bought good dirt. Yeah, right. Manure is your friend.
Yes, it is. We used to raise horses, and I loved my horse manure. I had the prettiest.
That's a shirt. We should manufacture a shirt. I'll go halvesies with you. Manure is your friend.
It absolutely is. It makes the best garden. It makes the best pasture you've ever seen because it's all natural. Food goes in, poop comes out.
There you go. It's the circle of life again, right?
It's the true recycling.
You got it.
I know my daughter's laughing at us. I can hear her in the background.
Well, that's good. She's probably getting a chuckle out of it.
Because she believes her husband hunts because that's how they keep fed in the wintertime because he's in construction and it gets lean in Georgia in the wintertime with the rain and the ice, so he hunts. They store up food for the winter.
I admire that. You know what? I mean, my brother hunts more than I do, but I've always fished my whole life. My dad used to hunt. My uncles used to hunt. It's all sort of a skill, again, that's passed down, but it's like when we need to, we do. Even on the farm. I mean, we used to cull chickens. I remember doing it, you know, and seeing it happen. And that's the other thing. You remove yourself sometimes at the grocery store from the process of, hey, something has to die.
Exactly.
In order for us to live, it just doesn't come in a nice little package. We used to run these things where I was in the local school in town, but they all knew I grew up on a farm. So twice a year they'd load up a school bus of kids. We'd all come to the farm. I'd milk some cows. We'd do a tour around the farm and talk about it. And 9 times out of 10, most kids had never seen a cow. That's where milk comes from, you know. And it's gotten a little worse. We take a car full of vegetables into town every once in a while in the summertime, open up the back, go into a subdivision or something, and just start selling stuff out of the back. We test kids. We say, do you know what this is? And, you know, is it a banana? I'm like, come on, man, this is a zucchini. You don't know the difference between a banana and a zucchini? So I like kind of sparking people's interest. And then when they're all asking questions, the parents all come out with $20, $30. Hey, we want some onions. We'll take some potatoes from you guys. So I'm kind of educating people at the same time while I'm walking around trying to sell vegetables.
That is too funny. They think a zucchini is green. I mean, a banana is green. Okay, then. Apparently they've never seen many bananas.
Yeah, I was floored. I was like, or they didn't know the difference between thyme and mint just by smelling it. You know, and I mean, that's a herb or whatever, but at the same time, I mean, thyme is like, you know, it's like turkey, Thanksgiving, you know, people use it in soups. But mint, Hello, toothpaste, candy canes, suckers, candies, whatever. You got to know the difference, and it's alarming when you don't know that. I mean, taste and smell and how it also accentuates the eating process or even the memory process. Smell is such an immense trigger for the memory. So I'm like, I always get a kick out of it. But it's the 4-year-old. It's the 4-year-old that knew. She was like.
It's sad it's sad when we have retarded our senses due to lack of interest in our environment and the things around us.
Well, and it's exposure. And if we don't have the exposure, the consumer species in generation, less than a generation, the backyard garden, the victory garden post World War I, even like at the turn of the century, in the beginning of the 20th century, all of that was commonplace. And when, the advertisement has always sold that those things are drudgery, those things are cumbersome. You don't need to do that. You don't have the time to do that. But when you remove it from your life, you've lost, in my opinion, a great portion of that connection that you have to your living environment. And I want that in my life. I don't want the artificial aspect just for the sake of convenience.
Because convenience is short-lived.
Sure is.
And then we forget. Think of it this way, Ed. The old adage, if you don't use it, you lose it. Well, what we have made up for in convenience, we've lost in common sense, knowledge, intellect, and intelligence.
Right. And that's where, again, it's like with education. As far as I'm concerned, kids should be working on and understanding how a garden lives and breathes when they're in grade school. I remember my grade school had no garden. It had a soccer field nobody used, baseball diamonds nobody really used, monkey bars, yes, A-frame, the tire swing, jungle gym, that kind of a thing. But other than that, it was a huge field space that a lot of kids, other than some sporting events and stuff, play days and extracurricular stuff that went on. But it was huge. You could have grown enough food in that backyard of that school to have sustained, a good portion of that community. And if the kids were involved, those kids today would have been still growing food today.
And you're not going to believe this, but our hour's almost up.
Oh, dear. It was a lot of fun.
Well, will you come back?
Absolutely. I'd love to. I'll give you that big hug around the neck, too, when I see you.
Okay. I expect you to come to South Florida and give it to me. I expect that.
Whereabouts are you, South Florida? Are you like Deerfield Beach?
No, we are between West Palm Beach and Daytona.
Okay, beautiful area.
Yeah, we're on the Treasure Coast in Port St. Lucie.
Nice. My mom's on the other side, and she's in St. Pete's.
Oh, I know where St. Pete is. We have friends over there.
Yeah, Clearwater.
Yeah, know exactly where it is. See, so when you come
Lovely.
to Florida, you can just come across the state to the east Treasure Coast side on the east side, and we'll just have a big old hug.
I'm in.
All right. So you will come back, and when you come back, let's delve more into the uniqueness of children that are gifted with these unique gifts that they're so blessed with.
I'm in.
Okay. I'll send Michael some dates, and you've hooked up with me on Facebook. And don't hang up when the show goes dark because I got some things to tell you. But before it goes dark, I want to thank you so much for this wonderful, wonderful hour. You have rejuvenated me after a very long and trying day, and I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
It was off the chain.
As always. And ladies and gentlemen, you can find all of Ed Roman's music. Tell them where they can find your music and where they can find you.
You can come and see me at edroman.net on the World Wide Web. You'll find all my social networking buttons there, like Twitter and Instagram, my YouTube channel, Facebook. You can check me out on SoundCloud with a bunch of my older material. You can get my latest record on iTunes, Amazon, CD Baby. It's red, it's fun, it's got a rooster on it. It feels good.
Absolutely, and the rooster is because it's back to earth, it's back to nature, it's back to the roots of our being. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I want to let you know tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, radio host Gary Allen friend of will be here, so join us. And remember what I always say at the end of the show, people will forget your name, they will forget what you look like, they will forget what you're wearing, but they will never, ever, ever forget how you made them feel. And I hope and pray that every one of you, listeners and guests alike, when you leave this show, that you always feel like you're the most important person in the room, because you are. It is not an act. Each one of you are very important to me personally. And I include you all in my prayers every night. Might not know you all by name, but you are in my prayers, because to me that is very important, because my faith does sustain me. And also, remember this, when you look at yourself in the mirror in the mornings, don't say I feel special today. You say I am special, because you are. And only you can believe that before others will believe it. So with that being said, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining my guest, musician Ed Roman, and I tonight. Join us tomorrow night here at Off the Chain at 8 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. And until then, we hope that you have a very good evening. And go and get Ed's music. Hook up with him. You'll love it. Trust me. So with that being said, we say good night and see you tomorrow night. Okay, we're off the air, but everything we say will go up into the archive show. It's like the outtakes of a movie. They will hear this conversation, but that's okay. But what I wanted to tell you is when we get off the air, the show will go up into archives, and once it archives, I'll put the link on my page, and I'm going to tag you and Michael in it. I want you to take this show and put it everywhere. And
Absolutely.
It gets better.
I was sharing it all over my social media and everything that was going on today. I was talking about it. So yes, I want to share it for sure. I love your show. You've got great questions, amazing energy, and just a wonderful vibe. And by the way, the Maya Angelou quote was great at the end of the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, see, I don't script the show. Scripting the show to me is as plastic as my credit card. And the reason we call it Off the Chain is I never know where a conversation's going to go.
But that's why it's good. When it's scripted, it's one thing to say, okay, well, we're going to talk about this, but just to leave it at that. It's like a good improv solo. If you're listening, you bounce off of each other, you have a little fun, gets a little crazy, gets a little serious, but usually it's real.
And my shows are nothing but real.
You got it. It was a great show. You're an amazing host.
Well, tomorrow I'm going to put the show up on Spreaker, SoundCloud, Mixcloud if it's up and running, podcast.com, and Podcast Garden. From there and from this show, it automatically goes up on iTunes, YouTube, FM.com, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and it is working its way to Spotify. And it also shows up on some oddball sites that I don't put it up on, third parties do. So I will tag you in those links too, because this show is heard everywhere.
Good on you. You know, I'm proud to be on the show, because it's like when you said that about, like, you know, you're doing ads for people and $10, but you're wanting to make things connect and work for people. It means a lot, you know, for independents like myself and other people that are doing what we're doing, to have that kind of love and support. I meant it when, you know, this whole advent of this part of technology that we've embraced, as crazy as it is sometimes, it's still very in its infancy stage. Internet 92, you know, all this new technology to be able to set up these platforms, and it's very new, but it's so special, because it has something that the other sort of big radio, paid radio, big part of the system doesn't have, which is that sense of sharing and giving. So it's a pleasure, really.
Well, thank you. And it also, Ed, opens up avenues for years and years and years, and I've preached this since day one. For centuries, we've been told what to read, what to listen to, what to watch. And indie artists have broken that mold. We are offering up things that years ago would have been an impossibility to get out there.
You're right.
And I was
would have costed a fortune or something.
Yes. And when I published my first book back in 2007, because I've been rejected from the 90s, I said, I'm done with this. I'm taking my destiny in my own hands.
Good for you.
It started breaking that mold, and I embraced social networking. I had other indie authors going, I'm not going to put myself out there. It's too dangerous. I said, okay, don't. But you're not going to sell a damn thing. Right. You've got to embrace. It's a double-edged sword, but you've still got to embrace it, because if you don't embrace it, you're going to lose an audience that you might want.
You know what? I have to tell you this, because of the kind of person you are and the vibe that you're in and everything. I saw this wonderful documentary here in Canada the other night. I'm trying to remember what it's called again, but it's Science versus God. And if you get a chance to see it, maybe it's on Netflix or something like that, I don't know. But what's amazing about it is it almost summates exactly what we've been talking about, this sort of connection to our living environment and a higher source. And one of the things in your statement you just said before that, people didn't want to do that. Okay, fine, you don't do that, then you're going to miss out, you're not going to sell. The species that doesn't adapt and start to change as a result, even though it might be difficult, but uses the tool to their advantage, will survive.
Exactly.
Those that don't or go the way of the dodo.
And they die out because they cannot evolve. And yes, there was a creation. I believe in God. I believe there's, but as human beings and as a species, we evolve with the environment, with the times, and with the technology. We don't stand still, because if we stand still, we die.
You're right. Do you know what Francis Crick? He was the guy, along with, what's his last name again, Robertson, that had developed and figured out how to map and chart the DNA strand.
Yes.
Okay, and then they asked him what he thought about the existence of a higher being. And he said, well, let me put it to you this way. The chances of all these chemicals and everything that we have in our universe amalgamating in this way in such a short period of time is impossible. He said, you would actually have more likelihood of having a hurricane pass through a junkyard and having a 747 jet fueled and flying on the other side than you would of it happening by chance.
I rest my case, Your Honor. And with that, we're going to end this so I can go check on my husband.
Go.
Yes, I'm
Go.
Be
with him. You're a beautiful woman. I love talking to you.
Well, I didn't get to play all of your songs I had in the queue because we got so involved in other things. So
we'll do it next time, girl. We'll do it next time.
Well, and tell Michael to send me some more because I love your music, and we'll just...
I will.
We'll
and I'll look for Michael's messages about another date, and I'm looking forward to it already.
It'll be fun.
It will be.
It will be lots of fun. So thank you again, my dear friend. And
you're welcome. My best to your family, too, and your husband.
Thank you, sweetheart, and keep doing what you do.
You too.
All right, honey. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Motivation with Amazon Music.
You're still in bed? Didn't you go running?
Oh, I overslept. I'll go tomorrow. I'm getting in the shower.
Alexa, set an alarm for 5 a.m. tomorrow to hard rock music.
Okay, I'm up.
The right song exactly when you need it. Amazon Music, the simplest way to listen to the music you love. New customers start your 30-day free trial at amazonmusic.com. Renews automatically, cancel anytime. Motivation with Amazon Music.
You're still in bed? Didn't you go running?
Oh, I overslept. I'll go tomorrow. I'm getting in the shower.
Alexa, set an alarm for 5 a.m. tomorrow to hard rock music.
Okay, I'm up.
The right song exactly when you need it. Amazon Music, the simplest way to listen to the music you love. New customers start your 30-day free trial at amazonmusic.com. Renews automatically, cancel anytime.